Hello, this is Paranormal Girl, and today I'm going to talk about the Dibbuk box, the story of a possessed wine cabinet. Did two Jewish girls unleash something evil and seal it in the Dibbuk box? Well, the term Dibbuk comes from a Hebrew word meaning cling. In the Hebrew tradition, a Dibbuk is a malicious spirit that's bound on the earth to an object or person to complete unfinished business. The Dibbuk box story has taken the paranormal world by storm and is literally about a small wine cabinet that was brought to America by a Polish Holocaust survivor named Havela. The history of the Dibbuk box is a fascinating one that will take you from pre-World War II to the very present day. So this is the actual box once it was opened, and it contains some Hebrew wording there. Not quite sure what that means. So there's a little cup, probably to hold wine, a candle holder, looks to be some coins, a rose, very dried up rose. Not quite sure what that is. It could be some kind of beading, a lock of hair. And you can see this would have actually been a wine box that would have held the wine. But something else was going on with this box. Let's take a little look. So the box emerges. Havela acquired the box in Spain before her immigration to America. She'd kept the box hidden away safely in her sewing cabinet for the rest of her life. But in 2003, after her death, Havela's family held an estate sale where a man named Kevin Mannis purchased the box and a bundle of other items. He later spoke to Havela's granddaughter to make sure that she had intended to sell it, because he had suspected it could be a special heirloom and that had been unintentionally placed for sale. He'd also learnt that Havela had owned the box since she was a young woman. Mannis offered to return the box, but the granddaughter insisted he take it. She explained that it had sat on her grandmother's sewing room, out of reach and unopened for years because of the Dibbuk inside it. So we'll now find out what a Dibbuk actually is. So a frightening new possession. In a Dibbuk box documentary, Kevin Mannis himself explained his experiences. He said that he'd owned an antique and furniture refinishing business in Portland in Oregon. And he brought the box to his warehouse and put it in his workshop. After about half an hour, he received a call from the salesperson who was screaming that someone was in the workshop, smashing things and cursing. She claimed that the intruder had locked all the gates and emergency exits, trapping her inside. When Mannis arrived, the doors were still locked. There was no sign of an intruder. And upon entering, he had found crushed light bulbs littering the ground and the smell of cat urine, even though he'd never had an animal inside. The salesperson was so frightened that she'd quit her job that day after working with Mannis for 2 years. So Mannis decided he would open the box. And upon opening the box, he'd found two 1920 pennies, a lock of blonde hair, bound by a cord, a lock of darker hair also bound by a cord, so that must have been the actual braided part that I wasn't quite sure of, a small statue engraved with the word shalom, a small golden wine goblet, dried rosebud, and a four-legged candle holder. However, he didn't realize at the time that there was something very strange about this seemingly harmless cabinet. So let's look at Mannis and his family and the Dibbuk. Although initially he believed that the box had anything to do with the events that would follow, Manis reports a series of horrific experiences while in possession of this cabinet. He had horrible nightmares, usually about a friend or loved one turning into a demonic beast and beating him, whilst the box was in his house. And on October 28th, he gave it to his mother as a birthday present. That very same day, she'd suffered a stroke. And after the stroke, she'd managed to scribble on a piece of paper, "Hate gift," and rejected it. He had then given it to his sister, who'd only kept it for 1 week before returning it. She said that the doors of the box wouldn't stay shut. And it's strange because there was a lock on the actual box itself. He'd then given it to his brother, in which he'd returned it. He'd claimed that he could smell jasmine near the box, but his wife had actually smelt cat urine. Manis again took it back. Then his girlfriend asked him to sell it. He sold it to a middle-aged couple, but then found it on his doorstep yet again a few days later with a note saying, "This has bad darkness." At this point, he was desperate to sell this cabinet. Manis said, "I would destroy the thing in a second, except I really don't have any understanding of what I may or may not be dealing with. I'm afraid that if I destroy the cabinet, whatever it is that seems to have come with the cabinet may just stay here with me. I've been told that there are people who shop on eBay that understand these kinds of things and specifically look for these kinds of items. If you are one of those people, please buy this cabinet and do whatever you do with a thing like this. Help me." He later sold the cabinet on eBay. However, he relayed all the information about his experiences with it. Owners have reported the smell of cat urine or jasmine and other paranormal activity. So, now the Dibbuk box travels. The last person to auction the box on eBay was Losif Nitzik, a student of Truman State University in Missouri. He claims that the cabinet caused his roommates to suffer various health problems, light bulbs to break, a bug infestation, odd smells, and much more. To make matters worse, his hair began to fall out, and he'd went to a doctor and all his tests came back negative. He attributed his hair loss to stress. When he'd had enough, Losif sold the cabinet to Jason Haxton, the director of a museum of osteopathic medicine. He thought of the mysterious box as a historical puzzle. He talked to a reporter, Leslie Gorstein, and said, "It came from nowhere. It was made for a reason. What it is and why is it?" After a short time, Haxton developed strange health problems such as hives, coughing up blood, and head-to-toe welts. He soon decided to leave it in a storage unit. One night, the smoke alarm in the unit went off. He went to see what was going on, but didn't find any smoke. Curious now, he brought the Dibbuk box home and began researching it. On another evening, he fell asleep near the computer, and when he woke up, he saw a shadow on the wall moving away from him. So then he decided to research the history of a Dibbuk box. Jason Haxton began wondering if something could be wrong with the story behind the Dibbuk box. He had noticed several small details that could prove the history of it to be false. However, he needed to close these loopholes before he could write the book he was planning. For example, there were similarities between Manis's mother and Havela. Both ladies were Jewish and died at the age of 103. His desire to investigate, he called Kevin Manis to ask him many questions on how he came across the box. And then he asked for help to eliminate the Dibbuk box himself. The questioning prompted Manis to go back to the place where he bought the Dibbuk box to see if he could get more answers. After a long discussion with the granddaughter, he finally finally gave him the name Sophie, Hevela's cousin, who told him the story of how she and Hevela trapped the Dibbuk spirit inside the box. And this is their story. Hevela's cousin tells more of the story. Sophie indicated that between the 2 world wars, seances were very popular. Sophie and Hevela had made a spirit board and somehow came into contact with otherworldly beings. At this point, she suspected negative energy and because of the impending war, probably attracted evil spirits. Hevela and Sophie tried to bind the spirit they had summoned, but failed. This had happened on November the 10th in 1938, the night of Kristallnacht. After the war, they tried to bind it again and were able to trap it inside the wine cabinet. During this conversation, Sophie began apologizing, but Manis was confused. He asked her why she was so upset. She said it was probably because the spirit they had summoned had been the cause of World War II. And of course, then she blamed herself. So what is the connection of the Dibbuk, the eugenic movement, and Hitler? Even now, though they knew the history of the wine cabinet, Jason Haxton grew curious as to what was influencing the strange events associated with the Dibbuk box in the state of Missouri. After he'd done some more research, he came across the name of Harry Hamilton Laughlin. Harry Laughlin was famous for his role in the eugenics movement, which had inspired Hitler to create a super race. It was because of this movement that Hitler attempted to eliminate races that he'd considered inferior. Coincidentally, Laughlin attended the university that would later be called Truman State University, the school of Losif Nitschke attended. He believed the spirit possessing the box is on a mission to show them the truth about the Holocaust. He had met with a psychic medium who sensed death and fear surrounding the box. And when she touched the box, she felt a stabbing pain in her left ribs and her head. She believed that those sensations had something to do with the original owner of the box. So, resealing of the Dibbuk in the box. Jason Haxton consulted various rabbis about how to seal the Dibbuk in the box. He secured it in an ark he constructed of acacia wood and gold, replicating the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the original 10 commandments. He had then hid it in a secret location that he would reveal to no one. Chris French, head of the Anomalistic Psychology Research Unit at Goldsmiths College, didn't believe the authenticity of these events. He thinks that the reason that these things happen is because the owners expect them to happen. So it's like what they say. If you think something is true, be it a haunted object, say for instance you purchased a haunted doll on eBay, and the person that sold it to you said it was a haunted doll and it would make things move and it would scratch you. They are suggesting that the power of thought itself would bring about these occurrences. I don't know. What do you think? The owners, he said, are already primed to be looking out for bad stuff. Hence the reason why when they say it's haunted, you're going to think that whatever happens in your home, it'll be attributed to the actual haunted box. If you believe you've been cursed, then inevitably you explain the bad stuff that happens in terms of what you perceive to be the cause. In other words, if someone says they curse you, you believe it. So then anything bad that happens to you, you attribute again that to be the curse. Or is it? Put it like this. He said, I would be happy to own this object. I don't think I would though. Not really. Nonetheless, the Dybbuk box holds a fascinating story that involves not only the binding of a spirit, but the story also binds the mad eugenic ideologies of two men, Laughling and Hitler. The connection between these two men and the foundations of the entire Nazi movement. Sadly, it was also rationale behind the killing of millions of people who would die in the most significant Holocaust of all time. Maybe all thanks to the Dybbuk box. So what do you think? What do you think about this Dybbuk box? Do you think that it was a real bad spirit? I don't know. I don't think I would like to own such a box. Who knows? Then again, now, let's see who owns the box now, shall we? Zach Bagans acquires the infamous Dybbuk box for his haunted museum. So, if you're a fan of the paranormal, you should be aware of the Dybbuk box that gained infamy in 2004 in the story in the Los Angeles Times. It was to go on to spawn the movie The Possession. If anyone's ever seen the film, I suggest you take a look. It's quite a scary, scary film. So Zach Bagans now has this Dybbuk box in his museum. And again, here we go with the opening of the box that he purchased. He now also has a museum in Las Vegas, and it's his haunted museum. And if no one quite knows who Zach Bagans is, he is actually from the very famous TV show from the Travel Channel called Ghost Adventures. If again you're not quite sure, check it out. There's plenty on YouTube. You can check it out. I'm not quite sure how much he paid for it, but if you look up on the internet, it'll explain how much he actually purchased the box for. At one point, he did actually open the box and made a little series on it. It's worth a watch. So how Zach describes the box is, this particular item is commonly known as the world's most haunted objects, which Zach explains that he paid, paid tens of thousands of dollars for it. However, don't expect to see it open for the public when touring his Las Vegas-based haunted museum. According to Zach, he is genuinely too terrified to do that. But if you're brave enough and you're over the age of 18, you will have to sign a waiver to view it. And he's actually done this. I've seen a show where he's done it. And those who visit his museum, because he's quite famous for purchasing very haunted objects, and he will let visitors view these objects. But of course, you view them at your own risk. So again, my question to you, what do you think of the Dybbuk box? Have you seen the movie? If you haven't, I suggest you do, because it's very, very frightening. And during the end of the movie, the only person that could actually put this evil spirit back into the box was the rabbi, in which the gentleman in the movie goes for help. So beware when you go along to eBay looking for haunted objects to purchase. You never know what you might bring home with you.